After studying this module, we shall be able to understand the meaning of capital budgeting, appreciate the nature of investment decisions, show the importance of capital budgeting, know the types of investment decisions, and identify the investment decision criteria.
A corporate entity exists to serve some goals. Its objectives are defined in its mission statement. Some companies thrive to develop new products, some target new services, and some other may have the desire to provide quality products to its customers. The mission of the business is carried out by developing various goods and services. The production of goods and services require plant and machinery, tools, technologies, workers, raw material, and other productive assets. The assets of the company consist of long-term assets like plant and machinery, land, and building. It also includes some short-term assets like stocks of raw material and so on. In order to carry out these goals, companies make proper planning to smoothly run its operations. One of the major functions of the firm which has garnered significant attention is the management of its financial matters. This module focuses on investment decision of the corporate entity. The investment decision of long-term assets of the firm is called capital budgeting decisions, which is the subject matter of this module. The short-term assets are managed under working capital decisions, and this topic is discussed in a separate module. Thus, the capital budgeting decision is the long-term investment decision of the firm. Capital budgeting has certain peculiar features. It is the long-term investment plan of the firm whose payoff structure spreads over a period of time. This period is usually more than a year. It involves a pattern of cash flows over the years. Initially, funds are tied up in purchasing equipment, and later on it is followed by the generation of revenue for future years. The element of risk is involved in the investment as the funds are employed immediately. However, the return is anticipated to occur in future time periods. As future is uncertain, we cannot be certain about the realization of our expected return. It involves sizable amount of funds which makes it costly to rectify if planning does not work properly. The capital budgeting decisions are very crucial for the success of the business. A simple example of capital budgeting decisions may be the decision to open a new retail outlet in a city by Reliance Fresh. The decision to start a new manufacturing unit in India by Audi is also an example of capital budgeting decision. The desire of Audi is to stay in business for a long period of time involves substantial financial commitment on its part, which is enough to qualify it as capital budgeting decision. Capital budgeting is a step-by-step process that businesses use to determine the merits of an investment project. The decision of whether to accept or deny an investment project as part of a company's growth initiatives involves determining the investment rate of return that such a project will generate. However, what rate of return is deemed acceptable or unacceptable is influenced by other factors that are specific to the company as well as the project. For example, a social or charitable project is often not approved based on rate of return, but more on the desire of a business to foster goodwill and contribute back to its community. Capital budgeting is important because it creates accountability and measurability. Any business that seeks to invest its resources in a project without understanding the risks and returns involved would be held as irresponsible by its owners or shareholders. Furthermore, if a business has no way of measuring the effectiveness of its investment decisions, chances are that the business will have little chance of surviving in the competitive marketplace. Businesses, aside from non-profits, exist to earn profits. The capital budgeting process is a measurable way for businesses to determine the long-term economic and financial profitability of any investment project. Capital budgeting is also vital to a business because it creates a structured step-by-step process that enables a company to develop and formulate long-term strategic goals. The ability to set long-term goals is essential to the growth and prosperity of any business. The ability to appraise value investment projects via capital budgeting creates a framework for businesses to plan out future long-term direction. Seek out new investment projects. Knowing how to evaluate investment projects gives a business the model to seek and evaluate new projects, an important function for all businesses as they seek to compete and profit in their industry. Estimate and forecast future cash flows. Future cash flows are what create value for businesses over time. Capital budgeting enables executives to take a potential project and estimate its future cash flows, which then help determine if such a project should be accepted. Facilitate the transfer of information. From the time that a project starts off as an idea to the time it is accepted or rejected, numerous decisions have to be made at various levels of authority. The capital budgeting process facilitates the transfer of information to the appropriate decision makers within a company. Monitoring and control of expenditures. By definition, a budget carefully identifies the necessary expenditures and R&D required for an investment project. Since a good project can turn bad if expenditures aren't carefully controlled or monitored, this step is a crucial benefit of the capital budgeting process. Creation of decision. When a capital budgeting process is in place, a company is then able to create a set of decision rules that can categorize which projects are acceptable and which projects are not acceptable. The result is a more efficiently run business that is better equipped to quickly ascertain whether or not to proceed further with the project or shut it down early in the process, thereby saving a company both time and money. Unlike other business decisions that involve a singular aspect of a business, a capital budgeting decision involves two important decisions at once: a financial decision and an investment decision. By taking on a project, the business has agreed to make a financial commitment to a project, and that involves its own set of risks. Projects can run into delays, cost overruns, and regulatory restrictions that can all delay or increase the projected cost of the project. In addition to a financial decision, a company is also making an investment in its future direction and growth that will likely have an influence on future projects that the company considers and evaluates. So, to make capital investment decisions only from the perspective of either a financial or investment decision can pose serious limitations on the success of the project.
After assessing the nature, now we move on to the importance of capital budgeting decisions. The capital budgeting decision is one of the most important decisions taken by the business entity. The main reasons for its importance are the survival of the firm depends on choosing the right kind of project. Therefore, proper care should be taken to ensure that the beneficial projects are taken by using capital budgeted analysis. Once the survival of the firm is secured, the next task is to make efforts to achieve consistent growth. The growth comes from making profitable investment decisions, which is subject matter of capital budgeting decision. Due to element of uncertainty regarding future events and risk associated with the long-term decisions, it is very important to take judicious decisions. The amount of funds involved is very high. Such decisions are irrevocable decisions. The decisions, once taken, cannot simply be reversed without incurring huge costs.
Capital budgeting has a long term implication. Capital expenditure decision affects the company's future cost structure over a long time span. The investment in fixed assets increases the fixed cost of the firm, which must be recovered from the benefit of the same project. If the investment turns out to be unsuccessful in future or gives less profit than expected, the company will have to bear the extra burden of fixed costs. Such risk can be minimized through the systematic analysis of projects, which is the integral part of investment decision. Capital investment decisions are not easily reversible without much financial loss to the firm because there may not be market for second hand plant and equipment, and their conversion to other uses may not be financially viable. Hence, the capital investment decisions are to be carried out and performed carefully and effectively in order to save the company from such financial loss. The investment decision, which is undertaken carefully and effectively, can save the firm from huge financial loss which arises due to the selection of unfavorable projects. Capital budgeting implies long-term commitments of funds. Capital budgeting decisions involves the funds for the long term. So it is long-term investment decision. The long-term commitment of funds leads to the financial risk. Hence, careful and effective planning is must to reduce the financial risk as much as possible. Slide 15.
In any business, the investment decisions are required to be taken either for setting up a new business, which requires land and building, plant and machinery, and so on, or in the course of the business. In the course of business, various decisions are required to be taken with regards to the investments, which are expansion, diversification, replacement, and modernization. Expansion. It refers to widening the production capacity of a firm, which requires more capacity and new machinery and equipment to deal with increased production decision. Suppose Apple is manufacturing 1 lakh units of its iPhone each year with its given capacity. In case of increase in demand or the expectation of increasing its sales, it decides to manufacture 2 lakh units of iPhones. This is the example of expansion. Diversification. It means entering into new areas of business to increase its products base. Suppose a telecom operator such as Airtel, which provides telecommunication services, now decides to manufacture cell phones. This will be termed as diversification. Such decisions are known as investment decisions and are decided upon by using the capital budgeting techniques. Replacement. In case of a going concern, it is natural that some of its equipments will wear out as the time proceeds. In order to maintain the production capacity, firm needs to replace such worn out assets with the new ones. This replacement decision is most common investment decision of the firm. Modernization. The use of new technology and instruments to provide goods and services is known as modernization. The use of computers instead of typewriters is an example of modernization. It yields greater production of goods and services.
Capital investment decisions also can be called capital budgeting in financial terms. Capital investment decisions aim includes allotting the capital investment funds of the firm in the most effective manner to make sure that the returns are the best possible returns. Assessing projects as well as the allocation of the capital depends on the project requirements and are of some of the most crucial capital investment decisions aspects. There might be many different criteria for choosing the appropriate and right capital investment decision. For example, a company might stress on projects that assure for prompt returns, while a few other companies might assert on projects which ensure a growth in the long term. The important aim of capital investment decision is increasing the firm's value by taking on a good project at the perfect time. The power to study as well as take capital investment decisions permits an individual as the manager or owner of a particular business to make sure that their resources which are limited are apportioned to the projects which would best accomplish their strategic goals. Thus, they also are at times denoted as strategic capital investment decisions. These kinds of decisions could be associated to capital investment decisions like constructing a new factory, dedication towards a new campaign for marketing, acquiring a business, or developing or creating a new website. The aim of a business while making capital investment decisions is maximizing the wealth of the shareholder by acquiring assets and yielding profits, and to be able to do this as the owner of your business, you should be able to find out and determine as to what projects of capital investment would yield a cash flow which is positive, and when there are constrained resources as they generally are in case of a startup or small business are usually for most of the businesses that are facing the credit crunch. Rate the projects on the basis of priority depending on the kind of value they generate. Capital investment decisions mostly are regulated by the procedure of rating and identifying the organization's capital investments. The company ought to decide as to which of the capital investments that are given would ensure the maximum value to their business, and thus they can make their capital investment decision. The capital investment decisions suffer from many constraints generally. The sum of capital which an organization collects is restricted, and thus it gets the restraint on the firm's choice down to an extent over several projected investments. When the firm's debt is raised, the firm's debt equity ratio too is increased, and thus it gets hard for a business to be able to increase more debts. Making strategic capital investment decisions which are consistent could also be problematic because a lot of people prefer using capital investment appraisal techniques, which increases the chances of having their favorite projects accepted. In a lot of cases, capital investment decisions are reached subjectively, and financial techniques are put into use to rationalize once the capital investment decision has been made. Most of the investment projects which are strategic have problems which are ill structured, calling for an approach which might never have been ever put to use before. Thus, complexity, novelty, irreversibility, and ambiguity characterize these capital investment decisions. It's important that we recognize and put the strategies in place to deal with such issues and problems, because if you make one wrong capital investment decision, then it can impact a business's value negatively, thereby making creditors and investors not really willing or keen to fund the business anytime in future. The capital investment decision of project ranking plays a crucial role in capital investment decisions. Depending upon the kind of project a firm has at a particular point of time, the companies prioritize the various projects. Project ranking is dependent on the fact as to how much would a particular project return, as well as which project has the ability to provide the business a maximum value. There are a lot of measures which give an estimate of the firm's return over several investment projects. To be able to determine a specific project's value, the three most common used methods are payback method, net present value method, and the IRR or internal rate of return method. These are the different kinds of methods which are put to use while taking capital investment decisions. The net present value, defined as the present value of a project's cash inflows minus the present value of its costs, tells us how much the project contributes to shareholders' wealth. The larger the NPV, that is net present value, the more value the project adds, and thus the higher the stock price. NPV is generally regarded as the best single screening criteria in choosing projects. A project's internal rate of return or IRR is the discount rate that forces the present value of the inflows to equal the initial cost. This is equivalent to forcing the NPV to equal 0. The internal rate of return or IRR is an estimate of the project's rate of return. Why is the discount rate that causes a project's NPV to equal 0 so special? The reason is that the IRR is an estimate of the project's rate of return. If this return exceeds the cost of the funds used to finance the project, then the difference is a bonus that goes to the firm's stockholders and causes the stock prices to rise. NPV and IRR are the most commonly used methods today, but historically the first selection criteria was the payback period, defined as the number of years required to recover the funds invested in a project from its operating cash flows. Although the payback methods have faults as ranking criteria, They do provide information about liquidity and risk. The shorter the payback, other things held constant, the greater the project's liquidity. This factor is often important for smaller firms that do not have ready access to the capital markets. In practice, actually, a lot of capital investment decisions are reached with specified time period and information generally, leaving out one or more than one steps in capital investment making process. The political activity inside an organization might also affect a capital investment decision where individuals or groups have a set interest in certain projects. The capital investment decisions aren't regularized by one or two components or factors because the problem of investment is not just one of the problems of substituting old equipment with new, but it's related to replacing an existing procedure within a system with a new one that makes the whole system better and much more effective. There are some of the factors which affect capital investment decisions. These factors are the outlook of the management, opportunities which are created by technological changes, strategy of the competitor, cash flow budget, fiscal incentives, market forecasts, and other non economic factors.
The investment decision can also be classified on the basis of their manner of selection into three types: independent investment decision, mutually exclusive decision, contingent investment decision. Independent investment decision. This type of decisions are taken on the basis of its profitability without considering any other option. For example, a manufacturing company may be considering expansion of its plant capacity to manufacture additional units and addition of new production facilities to manufacture a new product line. Depending on their profitability and availability of funds, the company may undertake either one or both the investments. Mutually exclusive decision. These are the decisions whereby the selection of one alternative automatically results into the rejection of other alternative or alternatives. Under this situation, there are various ways available for using given resources. For a student, whether to attend the lecture or watch a movie is a mutually exclusive decision. Similarly, a company may, for example, either use a more labor intensive semi automatic machine or employ a more capital intensive highly automatic machine for production. Choosing the semi automatic machine precludes the acceptance of highly automatic machine. Contingent investment decision. Investment decisions which are contingent on happening of any other event or decision are known as contingent investment decisions. For example, when a project is undertaken by the firm in remote areas, there is a need to build roads, medical house, and other infrastructure to support the production process. These addition investment plans are contingent on taking the investment decision in the remote area. Thus, these decisions are contingent investment decisions. Now we shall take an overview of the investment decision criteria. The basis of making an investment decision is guided by overall objective of financial management. The most commonly accepted goal of the financial management is wealth maximization. It is reflected in the increase in the market price of share. Thus, the main criteria of making investment decision is to assess its impact on the market price as it reflects the wealth of the shareholders. The main process of taking investment decision is a three-step process. Firstly, the cash flows associated with any project are forecasted. It involves a series of cash flows over a period of time. Initially, when an investment is made, outflow of the cash take place and then it is followed by the generation of revenue from the project's activities. Secondly, the cash flows for the various years are not directly comparable. The cash flows which will be received in future cannot be just added to compute the total amount of revenue which is estimated to be earned by the project. The reason for this lies in the concept of time value of money. This concept states that rupees 100 received today is not the same as rupees 100 to be received after a year. After computation of the relevant cash flows, we have appropriate discount rate at our disposal to compute their present values. We can proceed to use various capital budgeting techniques to make investment decision. The most common and the easiest way to make investment decision is to compare the investment or the cost of the product with the present value of the cash flows to be generated by the project. It is also known as net present value (NPV). Thus, a project is accepted when it has positive NPV, otherwise it is rejected. Apart from NPV, there are other techniques of capital budgeting as well, such as payback period, internal rate of return, average rate of return, MIRR, etc., which helps in evaluating the different alternatives and take the investment decision accordingly. Slide 20. In this module, we have learnt about the capital budgeting, nature and importance of investment decisions, types of investment decisions, and the evaluation criteria of investment decisions.